The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on the United Nations Global Compact, Communication on Progress, COP. My name is Ana Blanco. I work for the Communication on Progress team in the New York office. I'm here with my colleague Alexandra Terrazzi. You will be hearing her later during this webinar. Again, thank you all for participating, for attending here this webinar today. Today's session has been designed for companies, participants in the Global Compact that are preparing or are trying to understand better what is the reporting requirement in our initiative. So we will go over all the details about that today. For this webinar, all the participants are muted, so if you talk, I will not be able to hear you, but all your questions are welcome at any time during the webinar. Please feel free to go into the little box in your screen that says questions. Type your question right there, and we will be addressing the questions as they come up. The webinar will last about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the amount of questions that we have. And you will be receiving the materials of the presentation, both the PowerPoint that we will see today, as well as the recording. Sometimes the recording takes a few hours to download, so please bear with us. You will be receiving it sometime later today, the latest tomorrow morning. Okay, so with that being said, let's get started with our webinar. Remember, your questions are very welcome in the little box in your screen. So these are the points we're going to go over today. We are going to have an overview, then we're going to see, first of all, today's objectives. I don't know why that didn't come up first. Then we have introduction to the COP, a brief overview and the whole idea behind the communication on progress, the differentiation levels, and we are going to see a submission practice. Many times companies know how to do a report, they already have a report, but at the moment of submitting is when they encounter problems. So in point number 4 is where we will see the practice. And lastly, we will have a checklist. We want you to leave this webinar knowing what to do. So this checklist is going to tell you, okay, after you have learned all what you learned today, you should first do this, second do this. That's the checklist. So it's 5 brief points, and we will cover them in 45 minutes. So what are today's objectives? First of all, the idea after this webinar is that you have a clear understanding of what is a COP. That includes all the requirements of a COP, as well as the options you have to submit a COP. The second objective is to prepare business participants to communicate progress with high level of transparency and quality. It's not only submitting just a COP just for the sake of it, or just because you have you made the commitment of doing so, but how you can do it with high standards of transparency and quality, and that is what really meets the expectations of your stakeholders. We will talk about your stakeholders in a minute as well. And lastly, the third objective for today is that you guys learn how to submit a COP in our online portal. An introduction to the COP. What is a COP? The name of it is that communication on progress. Those are the 3 letters, communication on progress. I always like to start this introduction of the COP by highlighting the word progress in the title of our COP. It's a communication on progress. Many times companies feel that they are not ready to put a comprehensive report. They are fearful that the report won't show all the wonderful things that they could have done. And many times companies make the decision of not reporting and sometimes even not joining the Global Compact because they have areas where they could improve. However, in our communication on progress, we never expect companies to show how perfect they are. We don't, and the same thing is their stakeholders. That's the idea of our platform. We don't expect companies to show perfection. We expect companies to report on progress. So any advancement that could be shown is a valid communication for a company to put in their COP. The COP is an annual communication with stakeholders. And here the key word in this sentence is stakeholders. It is not a communication with the United Nations. It is not a communication with the Global Compact Office. Your COP is meant to be addressed and written for the stakeholders. They are ultimately the ones who are going to be vetting the information in your COP. We have over 7,000 participants in the Global Compact. That is a large number of companies. Our staff is, while we are growing, we don't have the capacity to read each individual COP in our office. So here in New York, we don't sit and read every single of the 7,000 COPs that come in every year. We leave that to stakeholders, and they are the ones who monitor what's going on with the report. So that's why that's the first thing I want people in this webinar to walk away with. When you sit down to craft your COP, you are not doing it for the Global Compact. You are doing your COP for your stakeholders. Think on them. Think what they are expecting from you, from your company to disclose. General aspects applicable to all COPs. The format of the report is flexible. Some companies decide to do it with graphics, others decide to do it just text, others decide to do numbers, others do integrated reporting. We in the Global Compact, we are strong believers in integrated reporting, so we encourage integrated reporting, but each company individually can choose how to report. Some companies decide to structure their report by principle. So as you know, I see all of our attendees today in the webinar are participants of the Global Compact. So as you know, we are based on 10 principles. Some companies decide to do their report principle by principle. Others decide not to do it by principle, but by actions they have taken over the year. So that's all of those are valid ways of creating a report. The language of the report. We ask that the report is done in the language of the main stakeholder group. So if you are an American company operating in the United States, producing goods for consumers in the United States, it makes sense that your report will be in English. Now, some companies have more than one main stakeholder group. And in the same example I was giving, this company might have operations in the United States and in China, just to give an example. So it will make sense that this company has the report in 2 languages if possible. The report must be submitted through the website only. Many years ago, before technology had this leap forward, we accepted COPs sent to us in hard copy by mail. So we were receiving nice booklets with pictures, etc. by mail. That has changed. That is not sustainable. We don't want companies to be printing paper for sustainability reasons, and also because technology has made it easier for us to collect the reports and distribute among stakeholders through our platform. So we do not encourage you to send your reports via mail. It has to be submitted online. The submission requires a PDF that must be attached. We will talk about that a little later. And the report is annual, is an annual requirement. I'll go back to the annual in a minute. Let me see. Okay, I'll stick with the annual report. And remember, if there are any questions, please type them down and we will be happy to address it. So what we mean by annual communication on progress. When a company joins the Global Compact, so the first step is the CEO expresses to Secretary General Ban Ki-moon the desire of the company to join the Global Compact. They send a letter. The CEO sends a letter. It's an online application. We review those applications and then we accept the companies or not. When the company is accepted, at that moment, that date, the company becomes a Global Compact participant. Let's suppose this participant was accepted in January 1st of this year, January 1st, 2013. So that company acquires a series of commitments like observing the principles, implementing sustainability topics, incorporating sustainability into their operations, etc. One of the commitments they acquire when they join the compact is to report annually. So this company was accepted on January 1st, 2013. Their first report, their first COP, is due 1 year after they have been accepted. That means they must submit their COP no later than January 1st, 2014. And every COP after that is due 1 year after the latest submission. So if the company keeps reporting on January 1st, then the next COP will continue to be due on January 1st of the next year. Let's suppose that 1 year the company was early. They didn't want to be in New Year's Day, January 1st, submitting reports. So they decided to submit their report 2 weeks earlier. And they submitted their report on December 15th. The next COP is going to be due December 15th of the year after that. So I hope that's clear because that's very important. If there are any questions, please type them down. Now, what happens if a company can't meet the deadline? Let's suppose in this example that I'm giving, the deadline is January 1st. January 1st in most countries of the world is a date where people are celebrating New Year's. Many offices are closed. And this company realizes this is not a convenient date for me. I'm not going to make it on that day. There are two options for companies to be able to modify their deadlines. One is what we call a grace period. It's a deadline extension. It's meant to be for unforeseen events or for events where the company knows something will come up and they cannot meet the deadline. And what it does is it grants an additional period of 90 days for that company to be able to submit their COP. So to obtain that grace period, the company must submit a grace letter through our online portal. Again, everything is through the portal. We will see later how to do that. So they submit a grace letter explaining the reasons why they will not be submitting their COP on time. And that letter will be made public. So again, this is for your stakeholders to know what's going on with your company. This letter doesn't have to be signed by the CEO. It can be signed by the person in charge of the sustainability topics in the company. So this is the one letter that does not require a CEO signature. We do grant more than one grace period. That means you can submit more than one letter throughout the participant lifespan in the compact. However, a company cannot submit 2 letters in a row. That means the maximum amount of time that we give is 90 days. If the company tries to get 180 days in a row, it will be denied. So you cannot send two letters in a row. Now, if you sent a letter, you got the extension, and then you reported, you submitted your COP, and then a year or two later, you find yourselves in the same situation where you need a grace period, then you can submit another grace letter again. That is fine. What you cannot do is submit a grace letter and immediately submit another requesting 180 days. Now, the second option that companies have to modify their deadline is what we call an adjustment request. This tool is thought of for companies who wish to align their existing reporting cycle with their COP deadline. So let's suppose we have the same example. Our company joined the Global Compact in January 1st. But as it turns out, they report every June. All their annual reviews, their financial reports, etc., they are already set in place to come out in June. So what this company can do is send a letter to, again, through our online portal, explaining that the reporting cycle is in June, that they will not submit their COP in January because they want to align their reporting cycle and their COP. In those cases, we grant them the period and we move their deadline so it becomes aligned with their reporting cycle. Now, what's the relationship between the Global Compact and other reporting frameworks? I'm going to talk a little bit about this, but before that, I want to pass it on for a minute to Alex Tarazzi, my colleague, and see if there are any questions up to this point.
Hi, Anna. No, there are no questions at this moment.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. So everyone, please remember, any question, you can type it at any time. We will address them. Okay. As some of you might be aware, there are many other reporting initiatives in the world. Some are at the local level, so they operate in specific countries. Some of them are at the global level. The idea, and it's a global trend in reporting, is that all these initiatives, that we work coordinated, that we coordinate our efforts in a way that we don't overload companies with requirements and options and alternatives, but that we all work hand in hand trying to make a harmonious world in terms of sustainability reporting. The three main partners that we work with are the IIRC, the International Integrated Reporting Council, the CDP, the Carbon Disclosure Project, and the GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative. Many companies have already some activities with one, if not with all of these organizations. The way the Global Compact works with them is for the IIRC. Let me start with IIRC. We are deeply involved in their forthcoming International Integrated Reporting Framework. The framework is right now out there for consultation. Any person, any company interested in participating and giving their opinion on integrated reporting is welcome to do that. So here, when you receive this report, you will be able to click here and it will take you directly where you can make your comments. So we are working with them, providing comments, inviting our companies to provide their input into the integrated reporting idea. And as I said before, the idea with integrated reporting is that it will count as a COP. If you have an integrated report, that report should work as a COP as well. Then we have the Carbon Disclosure Project. For us, it is a recommended framework for communicating progress specifically on the Caring for Climate initiative within the Global Compact. And lastly, we work with the GRI. GRI is probably the largest reporting initiative in the world, and we work very closely with them. They are releasing, actually this week on Friday, they will be releasing their new framework, their new guidelines. It's going to be called the G4. So far we have been living under the G3.1 regime, to put it in some way. Now they are moving on to the G4. We participated in the drafting of the G4. Our Global Compact initiative is mentioned through the G4. So if you are a company that currently uses GRI to report on sustainability, you will find in the new guidelines how to incorporate the Global Compact's principles. And again, if you have a GRI report, it is very likely that that report meets the COP requirements, so you can use that report as your COP. There is no need for a company to create additional reports to participate in the Global Compact. Yesterday, I was meeting with a large company who has GRI reports, they have sustainability reports, they have annual review, and on top of all those reports, they are creating a separate COP. So when I saw that, I was explaining to the company, they do not have, we don't want them to create a separate COP. That is not a sustainable practice. We don't want companies to have additional workload. We want you to be able to use what you have. If you have a GRI report, that report is very likely that it will meet the COP requirements that we will see in a minute. I hope that is clear. Also, please send your comments and questions. So let's see what are the differentiation levels within the COP context. At the very beginning of the Global Compact, when we started, we were determining what the reporting requirement was going to be, how to structure it, and we issued a reporting requirement. So companies, to show engagement, they had to report, period. We had companies who reported, companies who did not report, and that was it. However, as years went by, we started noticing that not all COPs are the same, not all companies disclose with the same level of transparency. So we decided to create a program where different levels of transparency were recognized. So the idea is to recognize the work of companies who show progress more clearly and transparently. The level of the COP is determined by the self-assessment of the company. So when the company submits the COP, they have to answer a questionnaire. Depending on the answers of that questionnaire, the COP will be categorized as either a GC Advanced COP, a GC Active COP, or a GC Learner COP. And let's see what each one of those mean. So here are if you see here on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a blue table, and it shows you the levels in our program. We have GC Active, GC Advanced, and then we have the leader. This is an aspirational area that we have. We hope all companies move even forward to be leaders in sustainability. GC Active companies are those who meet the minimum content requirements according to our COP policy. Which are the minimum COP contents? Every COP must contain a letter of continued commitment by the CEO. And this happens every year. Remember that your COP is an annual requirement. So every year, this is what companies submit to our website, through our online platform. A letter of continued support, we call it as well, because the CEO every year says, we continue to be supportive of the Global Compact and we continue to observe the principles of the Compact. The second requirement in a COP is that it must include a description of action in each one of the issue areas. And this is important. It has to be in each one of them. If the COP does not address the 4 issue areas, it means that that COP is incomplete. And we will see later what happens with incomplete COPs. Now, let's suppose that my company is a software company based in Finland. I work with my 4 partners out of my basement. We all have our laptops, and that's it. And we develop games, applications for an iPhone. And that's what we do. And we consider that we don't have any exposure to human rights issues. We report on labor because we have a couple employees. We report on environment. We care about the environment. We try to control our usage of paper, our waste disposal, etc. Anti-corruption is important for my company, in this example company that I'm giving. Anti-corruption because dealing with technology, hacking, etc. Anti-corruption is a topic. But in my operations, I have never come across issues with human rights, and I wouldn't know what to report on that. So for a case like this one, like this company, we observe the principle of report or explain. So if this company is not going to include data and report on the area of human rights, they should explain why. So they describe their actions in each area, and then they say, and in human rights, I'm not reporting because, and then the explanation. So that's the report or explain principle, to avoid your COP to become incomplete for not addressing one of the issue areas. And lastly, all COPs every year must include a measurement of outcomes. Ideally, for the actions described in the bullet point before, the company is measuring, keeping track of what's going on, what are the effects of those actions. That's what measurement of outcomes is. Now, sometimes companies just started implementing a policy, let's say my company's policy on human rights was implemented this year, and we have a mechanism of tracking results. However, since it's so recent, I don't have actual results. But my company has done a forecast of what are the results that we are expecting to see next year. In that case, it is all right. We do recognize forecasts as a way of measuring outcomes. So it could be past outcomes that have already happened, or that the company is foreseeing. So if the company meets these 3 requirements, as I just described, it will be a GC active COP. That COP submitted with these 3 elements will be active. Now let's suppose the company didn't report on human rights and they didn't explain why. They are missing one requirement, is an incomplete COP. That COP is going to be placed in the learner platform. They submitted something, they submitted it on a timely basis, but it's incomplete. So it's a GC Learner COP. And we have our advanced category that is for companies that meets, for companies that submit a COP that meets all these requirements. And on top of that, they observe a series of criteria. We call them advanced criteria. We're going to talk about them a little more. This is the distribution of the the current distribution of our participants in the Global Compact. We have 77% of our companies submitting GC active COPs. So as you can see, the vast majority of our participants are submitting active COPs, meaning they met the 3 bullet points I just talked about. We have 16% of our companies in the GC learner category, meaning 16% of our companies are missing requirements in their COP. So they are classified as learner. And then we have 7% of companies submitting COPs at the GC advanced level. And we put a star here because this is remarkable. It is a very small percentage of our participants. While we would like to see this number grow, and we are working hard on helping companies to report at the advanced level, we see that this is a great opportunity for companies who want to differentiate themselves, distinguish themselves in the area of sustainability. It's still a small group, and it's still a group of companies that are considered leaders in the sustainability area. So we do highlight these companies, we make them prominent in our presentations, in our website. There's a way of accessing COPs at the advanced level. So this is to encourage your company to consider becoming GC advanced. It is achievable, and it is an exclusive group that is growing, so it's a good opportunity for companies. So how do companies become GC advanced? As I mentioned, they have to meet the 3 minimum requirements, and they have to meet or plan to meet the advanced criteria. This plan to meet has to be a concrete plan. It is not, oh yeah, we will eventually get there, and that's it. No, it has to be a plan that is on paper, that has been approved, that has deadlines, and that is forthcoming in the near future. The advanced criteria you can download here. It's 21 criteria in different areas, and you can download by clicking here or going into our website. And the other important thing that companies need to do to achieve the GC Advanced is to complete a self-assessment covering the content of the COP. I mean, every COP, regardless of the level, it can be learner, active, or advanced, the company has to do the self-assessment. And as you remember, the self-assessment will determine the level of that COP. So to be a GC Advanced COP, you have to go through all the questions, and we will see in a minute how to do that. The advanced criteria, as I said, you can download the list. They can be categorized in 3 main areas. One is implementing the 10 principles into strategies and operations. So basically what we ask is what are your management policies, what procedures, what strategies does your company have in each one of the issue areas. Remember, the Global Compact issue areas are 4: human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. The second set of criteria are taking action in support of broader UN goals and issues. There are many different UN goals and issues. Of course, as you might expect, what we refer to here is how your company actually engages in that. It can be through philanthropy, it can be through advocacy, it can be through partnerships, different types of partnerships, can be through collective action. There are many options, and you will see the options when you download the actual list of advanced criteria. And the last set of criteria are in the corporate sustainability, governance, and leadership area. So it's basically asking how your company is structured from a governance perspective in a way that sustainability issues are ensured to be taken care of and considered from a governance and leadership perspective. Now, each criterion of the advanced, this is an example of a criterion. Criterion number 8, it says the COP describes effective monitoring and evaluation mechanism of labor principles. So this specific criterion is talking about how your company measures outcomes in the area of labor. That is the criterion number 8. Now, how does a company meet this criterion? We provide options. Each criterion has about six to 8 different options. We call these best practices. In order for a company to meet the criterion, they have to be able to say that they meet at least one best practice. So in this case, as you can see in the example here, this company clicked here. They said, yeah, my company has a system to measure performance based on standardized performance metrics. Standardized performance metrics, it can be the GRI, it can be ISO 26000, etc. So this company uses that and they marked that they observe this best practice. If a company observes more than one best practice, great. They can continue to mark here, as you can see on the screen. They can continue to mark. But in order to meet the criterion, at least one best practice has to be marked. If the company does not mark anything, they go through the best practices and they realize they don't do any of these, then they move on. That means this company does not meet the criterion. And what will happen in that case? The company will not qualify for GC Advanced, because in order to be GC Advanced, a company must be able to meet all 21 criteria. So that's what happens. We are very flexible, though, in the best practices. As you can see, the last option is other established or emerging best practices, and then we leave a box here where the company can describe what others. So if the company does not meet the ones we have identified as best practices, we give them the option, okay, if you don't meet any of these, tell us what you do to meet this criterion. So we are flexible in that sense. But if the company is not able to click at least one of these, they will not meet the criterion. Therefore, they will not be GC Advanced. Okay, before going to the submission practice, I'm going to pass it on to Alex. Do we have any questions at this point?
Yes, Anna, we do have one question. For GC active reporters, do they have to fill out the self-assessment, or just companies reporting at the GC Advanced level?
Okay, that's a great question, and I appreciate very much the question. Every single company submitting a COP must complete a self-assessment. We will see in the next section, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. Every single company has to fill a self-assessment. Now, depending on the answers of that self-assessment, your COP will be classified as either active, learner, or advanced if you try to fill the questionnaire for advanced. Let me go into the next section, because this question I think will be clarified once we go into the submission practice. So how does a company submit a COP? We know already companies need to meet some requirements, the letter from the CEO, they need to give a report that has a description of actions and measurement of outcomes. They need to submit their report every year. They can use their GRI reports if they already have one. We already know also that it has to be on the deadline. If they miss the deadline, the company, I think this is something I haven't been very thorough about. If a company misses the deadline, let's suppose January 1st, for our example that we have been given the whole time. Let's say the company forgot, or they couldn't for any reason, they did not submit their COP on the deadline, and they didn't submit a grace letter either, so they didn't get the extension of their deadline. What happens to that company? That night at 10 p.m. Eastern time, so when it's 10 p.m. in New York and that company missed their deadline, our system automatically changes the status of the company from an active participant to a non-communicating participant. And it is publicly disclosed in our website to all interested stakeholders, all interested parties, to see that the company is non-communicating, that that company missed their deadline and they did not report. So it is not a good thing from a reputation standpoint, from a sustainability leadership perspective. It's not good to be labeled as non-communicating. However, it's not the end of the world. Companies who are labeled as non-communicating, they will have another full year until the following January 1st, in this example that I'm giving, to submit a COP. So they have a full year. They will continue to be labeled as non-communicating. Their profile will have a yellow, it's like a yellow little sign that we have saying, hey, this company is not communicating. And then as soon as they submit their COP, that yellow sign will go away and the company will continue to be an active participant in the Global Compact. What happens if the full year of non-communication goes by and the company does not submit a report? That company, in that case, it means it has been 2 years and the company has not submitted anything. What happens at that point is the company is expelled from the initiative. We have a list of expelled companies. It's not a good list to be on. Stakeholders, investors, consumers, you name it, they are constantly going into our website and they are keeping track of what companies have been expelled from our initiative, and that is not a recommended list to be on. So there are many options for your company to change the deadline. You can contact us if there are issues. We are flexible, but you do have to take action in order to avoid getting to that point. Okay, so we have learned all these things. Now it's time for the company to submit. The company is on time. They want to submit their COP. The first thing they need to do is go to our website, www, here's the address, and use your username and password. The username is the one you were given when your company joined the COP, the Global Compact, sorry. You can request your password by clicking here if you forgot it. There's a video here that you can access with the submission practice. You can see it later. It's exactly what we're going to do in the next 4 minutes, but there's a video for your convenience here. Once you enter your username and password, this is what you will see. This is your organization's profile. Not all of the information you put here is public. For example, the contacts that you put in your profile is not going to be public. We do make public some of the information, that we make public the name of the organization, we make public that it's an SME, for example, a small and medium enterprise, etc. But there are only a few items that become public. There are tabs up here. You can update all the information you want, your contacts. If you want to request to use our logo, you can do so by clicking here. And then the last tab is the COP. When you're submitting your COP, you should click there. And once you click there, this is what you will see. It goes into the list of communication and progress that you have sent before. This is not a real company. This is some example we just created for the purposes of this presentation. So in this case, the company has submitted a COP in 2011, and then here there's something weird because they reported 1 week apart. So this could be a mistake. In that case, the company should contact us to try to correct the mistake, or maybe the company really wanted to submit more information and they just did so. So to submit your new COP, you just need to click on New Communication on Progress, and this is what you will see. So if you want, here's where the question of the participant is important. Every single company trying to submit a COP will have to answer the questions. If you know that your company is a GC active company, because you only met the 3 requirements or less than the 3 requirements, you will click COP submission. It's the normal submission at the active level. If you know or you believe that your company does meet the 21 criteria for an advanced level, you will click right here on advanced level. The 2 questionnaires are different because the first one includes questions only about the minimum requirement, and the second one is questions about the advanced criteria. So that's why it's different. Let's see what happens in both cases. So if you clicked on COP submission, the regular one, you will see this is for a GC active or learner, and for GC advanced you will see here. You will have to continue to click on new COP here on the active, or for advanced you will need to try to qualify for the GC advanced level. For both cases, this is what you will see. These are the minimum requirements. It asks you to enter a title for your report. We ask, this is just for information purpose, if your COP is a standalone document. It means if you created a COP specifically, a report specifically for this COP, or if you are using your social responsibility reports, your annual reviews, your GRI, what have you, and you are integrating it into that. So we want to know if you are using some other report as well. What is the time period covered by your COP? Ideally, the time period covered is the year previous to submission. So here you will not be able to put a future date. It's previous. What are you covering? What is your report referring to? Ideally, the year before. And then it says, does your POP, it goes into each one of the requirements. Does your COP include the statement by your CEO? You click yes or no. Does your COP describe actions in each one of the issue area? Then it goes into each one of the 4 and you click yes or no. So here, if you were to click no on any of these, for example, your report does not include the letter by the CEO, that means that immediately that COP is incomplete. And the COP will be in the learner category. And then you continue clicking, and this is what you see. For GC Active, it asks if you have measurement of outcomes. And then there's the last question for Active is also for information purpose only. How else do you distribute your sustainability information to your stakeholders? Now for the GC Advanced, is what I was talking about before. You have to answer questions about each one of the criterion. So the questionnaire for the GC Advanced is a little longer than the Active. You have to go here, you will see some tabs, blue tabs, and you have to go into each one of them. This week I had a company who couldn't submit their COP. They couldn't understand why they couldn't. It was not submitting. The system didn't allow them to submit. I had to explain to them, if they don't go into each one of the tabs right here, answering the questions, the system will not let them submit the COP, because we need questions for each one of the criteria. So again, you go, the criterion is this one, here are the best practices, you click on the best practices that apply to your COP, and then move on to the next criterion. Once you have done everything, every single blue tab, you will have, the system automatically shows that submit your COP. And again, what was happening to this company is that they never got this little tab saying submit your COP because they were missing one of the tabs up here. So only when you go through everything, the system shows the submit your COP. Once you do that, it asks what is the language of your COP. You have to upload a PDF, as we said before. It is a requirement to upload a PDF of the report. And then as an option, you can add links. Many companies have interactive websites and they keep updating their information constantly, and they have good things online. So here's the option for you to include those links. And then you click submit, and there's a little warning sign that says, are you sure you want to submit? Are you absolutely sure? Because this is real time. Our system works on a real time basis. The moment you click submit, that very moment, the COP becomes public to the whole world. So that is why we confirm, are you sure you want to do it? There is no way for a company, after they have submitted their COP, to go back and edit what they did. If there's a mistake and they really need to change it, it's a whole process. They have to contact us, and we have here normally to engage our IT people because it's an IT work that has to be done. So if you're not absolutely sure, please revise the COP before submitting, because changing it is not possible on an easy way. Then you click OK, and then it gives you, the system gives you the summary. So thank you, congratulations. It doesn't say congratulations. We should include congratulations. It says thank you for submitting your COP. Now it's available. This is what your stakeholders will see. So if you were an active COP, your stakeholders will see, oh yes, you met everything, you are active. Or if you are advanced, it says it is longer. The stakeholders will see the check marks for every single criterion. Now let's suppose that you are a learner. Your COP was incomplete. What it will say here is, thank you again, appreciate it, you're a GC learner. And the requirement that you missed is this one. And let's suppose it was the description of actions in human rights. So instead of it being marked with a green check mark, it will be marked with a red cross to highlight to you what your COP missed this time around. And it's fine. As we said, we don't want reports to be, we don't need them to be perfect. We have never seen a report that is perfect. What reports show is progress. So next year, when you submit your report, you just make sure that you manage to cover the area that was not covered this time around. That's how it works. And at the end, we'll show you, this is again the company we made up. This company doesn't exist. Just in our minds, we created it for the example. This is what stakeholders see about your company. So when you joined, if your company has been expelled, when it was expelled. In this case, the company rejoined, so when it was rejoined, the country, etc., etc. And at the bottom of the page, it shows the list of COPs or grace letters that the company has submitted. Any interested party can access these. We do push our information, our COP information is pushed out to investors, to academics, different groups, NGOs, etc. So that is why this is important, it's public information. Alex, do we have any questions so far?
Yes, so we have two questions, or actually three. I'll start with the first one. So the first one is regarding the time period of the COP. If a grace letter is submitted, what would the start date of the COP then be?
So hold on, let me see if I understood the question. If the company submitted a grace letter,
Yes.
which start date do they need to say? Okay. The grace letter, actually the dates that we are requiring in that time frame has nothing to do with your grace letter or with your actual submission of the COP. It has to do with the data, the information contained in your report. So regardless if you have submitted a grace letter, the dates that you need to put in those spaces are the dates that your report covers. So when you sat down or when your sustainability manager sat down to write the report, they must have said, okay, I have data from January 1st, 2012 until December 21st, 2012. I covered the whole year of 2012. And then later on, you are submitting that report you were supposed to submit it, let's say in February. You couldn't because the writing and the designer and the translators and everyone took longer than what you expected. You submitted a grace period letter and you were granted 90 days from February, which was your original deadline in this example that I'm giving. So February, March, April, May, so you have until May to submit that report. So you are going to submit it and report, but yet that report is still covering 2012, January to December of 2012, because that's what your people, your writer included. So what you need to include to mark in that area is my report covers from January 1st, 2012 to December 31st, 2012, regardless if you were delayed in submitting it to the Global Compact. More questions, Alex?
Yes. Another question is, will a reporter be alerted before submitting their COP whether it will be categorized as learner?
Actually, no, and that's a good point. We don't tell the company, warning, if you answer this in this question, you will be learner. We assume that companies know that if they are missing one requirement, they will be learners. That's why we ask companies to go through the questionnaire and tell us what their COP is covering. I think the reason why we don't warn at the moment when you are submitting your self-assessment and your COP is that some companies, it doesn't happen often because there's a reputational aspect to it, but some companies have an incomplete COP, and knowing that they have an incomplete COP, they mark in the self-assessment that their COP is complete. So they are marked as GC active, which is not accurate, is not true, it doesn't correspond to their COP. So while we do expect companies to be transparent and clear, it does happen occasionally. So what we want to do is companies to go through the questionnaire. It doesn't matter, as I said before, we're not expecting for perfection. So it doesn't matter what that COP covers. Give us your answers, and at the end we will tell you what is your level. Now, but since you have been participating in this webinar, you know already that if you mark no in any of those questions, you will be learner. So if you say, no, my COP does not have a letter from the CEO, or you say, no, my COP doesn't include description of actions in an issue area, then that is going to be a learner COP. Now, you know that. If you want it to be active, you must mark yes in those questions.
Okay, and a question also attached to this one is any of the missing requirements, would they be then highlighted?
Yes. Let me go back here in the presentation, in the part where this is what this is what you will see, but also this part over here where there are the green check marks. This is in the left-hand side. We have the active COP. So you see all the check marks in green. That will contain red crosses for the actual requirement that was missed, and these list with the check marks or the red crosses will appear in your public profile. So your stakeholders will know exactly what requirement you did meet.
Okay, great. Another question. For disregards companies that have subsidiaries, in the participant information, would they have to would they have to state basically the headquarters name or the subsidiary's name?
Okay. The subsidiary engagement, tell me, Alex.
Just, and particularly which country would they have to mark?
Okay, great. Our subsidiary engagement policy is it's kind of complex because there are many different cases with headquarters, subsidiaries, etc. So we do have a full page on subsidiaries. So I encourage you to look in our website. Maybe contact us and we will send you, if you can find it easily in our website, we can send you the rules for subsidiaries. Now, there are different cases, as I said. Some companies want to keep the engagement with the Global Compact at the headquarters level. So let's say it's a company that has 20 subsidiaries, headquarters located in Switzerland, to say any country, and Switzerland, the headquarters in Switzerland, they want to manage and centralize and control all the engagement in the Global Compact. So in this case, this company, they choose to remain a participant only at the headquarters level, so they indicate Switzerland in their application and in their system and everything. It is an understanding that when the headquarters commits to the Global Compact, that the commitment applies to the subsidiaries. That is an understanding of the Global Compact as per our policy. But in that case, the company does not have to indicate individual countries or anything else. In their COP, in their annual COP, these companies submitting from headquarters, they say my commitment applies to my 20 subsidiaries in 20 different countries, and this is what they do. So that's how they highlight their efforts at their local level. That's one example. Now, there are other groups that say, oh, no, I do a lot of work at the local level. So let's suppose the same company in Switzerland, headquarters, etc. But this company says, my subsidiaries in Vietnam, Argentina, Kenya, you name it, they make so many efforts in sustainability that I think it's fair for these companies to be recognized and to appear as well as individual participants in the Global Compact. So in those cases, companies decide not only to subscribe their headquarters in Switzerland, but they also want Vietnam, Indonesia, etc. to be highlighted, and they create profiles for each individual company. So it depends, and there are some cases yet that the subsidiary is interested in participating in the Global Compact, but headquarters said, you know what, I have a lot going on right now, I cannot go into this. If the subsidiary, if you subsidiary in Vietnam, you want to do it, go ahead and join the Global Compact, but we headquarters will not do so for the time being. So we have some subsidiaries that are participants. without their headquarters being participants as well. So there is, as you see, there are a number of cases that we deal with on a daily basis, and again, we will send you the subsidiary rules and page for you to see. Do we have anything else, Alex?
Great. No questions at the moment.
Okay, perfect. So to finalize, we are 5 minutes over, and I apologize for that. But you had great questions, and I think it was very helpful to clarify. So what we want you to leave with after today: submit your annual COP on time. It's much better to submit a report, an interim report, even if the report is not complete at the moment. Submit it on time so you avoid being classified as non-communicating. Familiarize yourself with the advanced criteria. It is doable. There are 21 criteria, but there are many different ways to fulfill the criteria. So if your company is interested in being one of the few advanced companies, try to do it. Familiarize yourself with our reporting tools. We have all kinds of videos, reports, publications, help for you to report. Get familiar with the management model. The management model is a publication that we offer for companies to implement and report sustainability. You can click here when you receive the presentation. It will take you to the management model. And here we highlight other resources. And then lastly, you can set an example in your local network. If you operate in different countries, regions, etc., we have local networks. We operate at the local level. It would be a good thing for your company to get engaged with the local network. There are more resources for you to check when you receive this presentation. And lastly, here are some contacts here in the Global Compact office. Sarah Boswick, my colleague at the COP team, myself, Ana Blanco, Alex Tarasi. You will receive her contact information as well with the materials of the presentation. Okay, so if that's it for now.
Anna?
Yeah, sure.
Will you be sending the webinar attendees the presentation from yesterday and also of today?
Oh, yeah, sure. The yesterday one, it should have gone out, but if I'll be happy to resend it just in case something happened. So I'll be sending yesterday's presentation as well. And today's presentation, as I said at the beginning, the recording of the webinar might take a little while, so please bear with us. It's either at the end of our day or early tomorrow you will be receiving the materials. And okay, if that's it, thank you very much again for participating. Thank you, Alex, for taking the questions, and we look forward to receiving all your COPs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.